What I've learned some 2.5 years ago was that my prayer life was hurting my relationship with God. We live in a fast-paced world, and I would use prayer as a means of checking it off a to-do list. Now, if you think prayer is a to-do list, then you're wrong. Prayer is a relationship with God. If you don't spend the time with God in prayer, then you won't have much of a relationship. I also underestimated what God could do through me. I wasn't giving the God of all his due. I always prayed for what I wanted. But when Christ was teaching about prayer, he said, "Thy will be done, not my will." In January 2012, I was invited to come out here to the free market at Northminster Church. When I came out here, I was introduced to Eureka, who serves on the Leadership Council, and she took me on a tour of the facilities. I was amazed by the sheer size of this place, not to mention the gorgeous sanctuary that exists. During the tour, she told me that there were only about 150 people left that were going to Northminster. I couldn't believe that there were that few people that were in attendance. And it was at that point that God laid it on my heart to start praying for this church. So I decided to pray that God would fill this place and pray for God-sized dreams, dreams that only He can fulfill. It's only God that can do something this large. In January 2012, the staff and I were reading the book The Circle Maker by Mark Batterson. Mark suggests that you circle your biggest dreams and pray in that circle. So it was then that I came out here to the north side and started to circle Northminster Church. And along that way, God pressed upon me to pick up trash. I said, why on earth would I pick up trash? But God said, this is holy ground. So I started to pick up trash. And for months, I saw no movement whatsoever with anybody in the neighborhood. And so I continued to show up and continued to pray and continued to pick up trash. And what I knew was that people were watching me from afar. And then one day it happened. Sure enough, a lady came out who lives across the street from where the sanctuary is, and she asked, or she said, "Thank you for picking up the trash." And I said, "You're welcome." And she asked, "Do you go to this church?" And I said, "No." And then she asked, "Do you live in the neighborhood?" And I said, "No." And then she said, "Well, where do you live?" And I said, "Southside." And she had this puzzled look on her face, and sure enough, she said, "Why do you drive all this way to pick up trash here in this neighborhood?" And I said, "Because God told me to." And she said, "Well, bless you." And I said, "Yes, He blesses me quite a bit." Fast forward another 8 months, and a gentleman by the name of Reverend Willie Woodson joined me. He is the pastor of First United Presbyterian Church. And Willie came and joined me to pray for this neighborhood and for this church. And one day I was telling Willie about this lady that had asked me or had thanked me about picking up the trash. Sure enough, as we were turning the corner onto Montrose Avenue and I was telling him this story, Sharon, the lady that lives in the house, came out and said, "Reverend, what are you doing here?" Turns out that Reverend Willie is her reverend at First United Presbyterian Church. This fountain means a lot to me. It's my favorite place of all of the property around here at Northminster. Every morning when I come out to pray, I stop here and say the Lord's Prayer. The fountain hasn't been running in years, but one day I'm praying that it will come back to life and mean everything to the neighborhood, that they can see life back in this church. What I've learned is that the journey is more important than the answer, but keep praying till you get the answer. I have fallen in love with the people of Northminster and the people of Northside, and that has been more important than the answer that I've received so far. But I keep walking and keep praying that God will fill this place. That is my prayer, my God-sized prayer that I know God will answer in His time and in His will. So keep praying.